Hi, and welcome to Experience Points by University XP. On Experience Points, we explore different ways we can learn from games. I'm your host, Dave Ang from Games Based Learning by University XP. Find out more at universityxp.com. On today's episode, we'll cover gaming with motivation. Intrinsic motivation is one of the most powerful motivating factors for people. Intrinsic motivation is what keeps players playing. They play for the love of the game instead of for a particular reward. But what is intrinsic motivation? What is motivation in general? This episode will address intrinsic versus extrinsic motivation and how you can use both in games based learning. Intrinsic motivation is the individual drive for someone to engage or pursue an activity for one's own enjoyment. This drive is entirely internal and doesn't rely on external pressures to affect behavior. Intrinsic motivation allows players to continually engage and play in game-based learning environments, the effect of which is more educationally purposeful activities for students who engage in intrinsically motivating environments. This results in students who are more focused on meeting game-based outcomes rather than seek an external reward. Some examples of intrinsic motivation include participating or playing in a sport because the player enjoys it. Tidy people are driven by intrinsic motivation to clean up. Many readers enjoy word puzzles because they find it challenging or fun. Ideally, our students are intrinsically motivated to study a subject because they find it interesting and fascinating. Extrinsic motivation is when someone is motivated to perform or do something in order to either earn a reward or avoid a punishment. This means that you engage or do something not necessarily because you enjoy it, but because you know that you'll get something out of it or at least avoid something unpleasant. Some examples of extrinsic motivation is playing a sport for a reward, doing the dishes for an allowance, or entering a contest to win a scholarship. Most will see that intrinsic motivation is one of the most powerful ways to keep players and students engaged. But that can be difficult if you have particularly challenging subject matter or are creating really difficult activities. Including rewards for activities can be a good move, especially to spur interest. This is particularly relevant if you want the student to acquire or develop a skill that will benefit them at a later time. This is beneficial because it gives the student an opportunity to observe the skill in use, preferably in an application to solve a problem. Once they see the benefit of that skill, they are more intrinsically motivated to keep learning and applying that skill to solve more problems. Additionally, you can always use extrinsic rewards as a source of feedback for your learners. This way, they know when they've reached a certain level of achievement that validates a reinforcement for an activity. We see this in Fitbit and other activity trackers when accomplishing daily milestones, i.e., step goals, versus lifetime achievements, i.e., walking 100 miles. Extrinsic motivation should be avoided in situations where your players or students already find the activity rewarding and stimulating. This act of overcompensation or over reinforcement can be detrimental. By providing this extrinsic reward, you can make the activity seem more like work. Motivation is one of the hallmarks for game design and active instructional design. Using it wisely and efficiently is critical to helping students meet learning outcomes in a games based learning environment. You can use intrinsic motivation to create more socialized learning environments. Activities that are socially oriented, where other students or players reinforce individuals' behaviors, is intrinsically motivating. There is social proof involved in validating students' activities through their peers. Additionally, you can introduce purpose in games-based learning by wrapping your educational content in an agreeable theme. Learning about literature alone can be unengaging, but wrapping it up in a theme can give students more purpose. An excellent example of this is in the course Fantastic Places on Human Humans, Exploring Humanity Through Literature, offered at Brown University. In this class, students must serve as liaisons for humanity by communicating with an alien. They must interpret some of history's greatest fiction stories in order to relate to another being what it is like to be human through our literature. Self-direction, self-efficacy, agency, and autonomy also help to motivate learners intrinsically. This enables students to choose a direction and learning path. The decision is given to them on where to go next and what to do next, rather than having that decision dictated to them. Lastly, don't forget to include levels of feedback to learners. By gaining a sense of mastery through feedback in the form of progression, recognition, or achievement, students are better motivated to accomplish and engage more. Motivation is a powerful factor for games-based learning in driving players and students. That motivation comes in two major types. Intrinsic motivation addresses players' desires to achieve something that is inherently rewarding. Conversely, extrinsic motivation is driven by engaging in something for the reward. Extrinsic motivation can be used to motivate learners early, but relying on intrinsically motivating activities helps students and players continue to engage in the long run. I hope you found this episode useful. If you'd like to learn more, then a great place to start is with my free course on gamification. You can sign up for it at universityxp.com/gamification. You can also get a full transcript of this episode, including links to references in the description or show notes. Thanks for joining me. Again, I'm your host, Dave Ang from Games-Based Learning by University XP. On Experience Points, we explore different ways we can learn from games. If you like this episode, please consider commenting, sharing, and subscribing. Subscribing is absolutely free and ensures that you'll get the next episode of Experience Points delivered directly to you. I'd also love it if you took some time to rate the show. I live to lift others with learning, so if you found this episode useful, consider sharing it with someone who could benefit. Also, make sure to visit University XP online at universityxp.com. University XP is also on Twitter at university_XP and on Facebook as University XP. Also, please feel free to email me at any time. My email address is dave@universityxp.com. Game on.